for this morning. Let's just settle on that tax reform because it's a big one. And we have joining us here in the studio the Chief Executive Officer of Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprises, Dr. Yusuf. Dr. Yusuf, good morning. And
good morning.
Thank you for coming. This is obviously not a new topic. I know the last time I spoke with you on this, that was late last year when we were reviewing the year. You did say that you thought perhaps the committee would have left out some of those political, and we see those political issues are actually the ones that delayed, you know, the implementation up to now. Mr. Oyedele has said that we should see after this hurdle that we hope we have crossed, since the governors have given their endorsement with condition, that we should see implementation start by the second part of this year. But first, I think we should look at some of those propositions by the governors. If we could have that. We know that the issue of the population, equality, derivation, those were major ones. So we see that the governors are asking for revised value-added tax sharing formula, which is that political thing that was there. So they said 50% should be based on equality, 30% on derivation, and 20% on population. This was a major area of criticism that has delayed us up to this in the reforms of this tax, yes.
You know, there are two major components of this tax reform proposition. There is the technical component, which the committee had, done a very good work of. That is looking at the tax system, archaic laws, and equity and all of that. Then there is the political component, which is about this revenue allocation. Because revenue allocation is not exactly a tax reform bill. You know, tax reform is about efficiency of tax administration, optimizing revenue generation and all of that. But this political component required a political consensus, which is what we are now seeing. Now that the governors have stepped in, I think we are scaling a major hurdle, to this tax reform bill. Of course, there are other issues. I listened to your background reports, ASU and the Tetfund. Nobody can deny the impact of Tetfund on infrastructure development in our tertiary institutions. It has been very phenomenal. That is not a proposal, that is not something to tamper with, if you ask me. Because if you take that away, there is no way we can have the same kind of impact on infrastructure development in our universities. So I support ASU fully, that as much as possible, we should retain the Tetfund and even the proposal of the governors. You know, there's a sunset provision for Tetfund, for NIDA, for NASENE. And the resolution was that that should be expunged completely. So these are the political issues which required political consensus. So that will allow us to move forward with the bigger issues, of the tax reform, equity, revenue optimization, multiplicity of taxes, and all of that. So
and the governors too agree that there's a need for reform of our tax system. It's actually a cake. I think that is.
No, that has never been in contention, really. I wish the committee had not entangled itself in this revenue allocation issue. Otherwise, we will not be having all these issues.
Okay, so what?
But now that it has been politically, at least to a large extent,
resolved.
Okay,
resolved.
Yes.
So what does this mean, actually, having sharing formula 50% based on equality? What is equality? Derivative, I think maybe where it comes from, population. Explain to us what this means and how it will be implied, or how it could be implied.
No, the point is that this is a more inclusive proposition. Because when you talk about, because the current situation is that 50% is actually on equality of states. I'm talking of the current allocation of VAT revenue. The only thing that has changed now is like swapping the derivation component with the population. Currently, the population is 30% and derivation is 20%. Now that has been swapped in a way. Now we now have 20% population, 30% derivation. So the 50% equality of states means that all the states, irrespective of your population derivation, will get equal proportion from the VAT proceeds. So everybody is equal as far as that 50% component is concerned. The 30% will be based on derivation. Now, the derivation will be, according to the tax reform proposal, will be based on consumption. So 30% will be based on that, where the VAT revenue is generated from, based on consumption, according to the tax committee. So I hope there is no controversy about that. The last one is based on population. Of course, this will benefit states with bigger population. And you know that the northern part of the country actually have a fair advantage as far as population is concerned. So for me, this is more equitable, and this will address the political concerns, because this is a highly politically sensitive issue. It's also an emotive issue. So this consensus is a welcome development, and I think we can move forward now. Of course, we have the issue of the Tetfund. We have also the issue of overcentralization, because this whole tax reform proposal is likely to centralize all the revenues and all of that. And that will also come with its own challenges. So we have to be prepared to manage.
Could you expatiate on that? What do you mean?
What I mean is, we are going to pull all the revenues now. Both from all the revenue, we are going to pull everything together.
It's supposed to be just one body now.
Yes.
At least that's the proposal.
Yes. Something close to what we have with the TSA. And you know the kind of challenges that the TSA created. Even the FCT minister had to get an approval from the president to pull FCT out of the TSA, because the bureaucratic bottlenecks when it comes to pulling revenue together, and everybody now go through the budgetary process and all of it. It's a very big issue. And that is why this is even sometimes breed corruption. That's why we have this huge allegation against the former accountant general, running into billions of naira. So over-centralization creates bureaucracy. Bureaucracy creates a lot of corruption.
No, but shouldn't this help transparency? I mean, if, for instance, it's supposed to be more of digital and technology employed, and then we should be able to trace where the funds are going to, who is taking it, we'll have to go through the process. Shouldn't the centralization in this case bring more transparency? It
should bring more transparency. But what I'm saying is that centralization creates bottlenecks. It creates bureaucracy. And any system that has intense bureaucracy, that has a lot of bureaucratic bottlenecks, naturally will breed corruption. I can tell you that. I mean, look at even the public hearings. Even the police yesterday was saying that they want to be taken out of the envelope system. You know, the universities have been taken out of TSA.
After a lot of fights.
Because it created a whole lot of problems. So, if we are going to go that route, we should be ready to deal with the challenges of bureaucracy.
I hope that's
budget releases and all of.
I hope that's not the next battle we are going to start fighting, because I know how long we've been fighting the battle of this political sentiments around the.
Well, those will be lesser battles to fight, you know, because that will happen more at the level of implementation of these things. Because listening to even many of the agencies at this ongoing public hearing on the budget, many of them were complaining about delays, about challenges of releases. And that is why we have to now be rolling over budget implementation year in, year out. So dealing with this issue of bureaucracy from budget releases are extremely very important going forward. Then, of course, we need to take account of the fact that this economy has a huge informal sector. Because go to the informal sector, nobody is talking about VAT, nobody is talking about withholding tax. Go to Okearin, go to Lisha market, go to Alaba market. These things don't mean anything to them. So we have to be conscious of that, because whatever reform we are undertaking has to be fit for purpose. So we need to reckon with all of these things as we progress. But I must admit, a major hurdle has been crossed. Yes.
But shouldn't we look for a way to formalize the economy other than waiting and, rejigging our policies to fit? Wouldn't it be better for us to get the informal into the formal setting?
Well, that would be a tall order, because there are merits and there are demerits, But what I think is that whatever policies we have has to take account of the peculiarities of the environment. That is not to say that we should not encourage formalization. Of course, there are some progress that have been made in terms of formalization. But it is more important to reckon with the fact that policies must be fit for purpose. Policies must take into account the peculiarities of our own circumstances. That is very, very critical.
Yeah, so you were talking and we saw the ASU from the tertiary institution. That's the other part now. Yes. No increase in the VAT rate. Was there was a plan to...
There's a proposal. Yeah. From this year, it's supposed to be 10%. We are already at 7.5.
Yes.
Supposed to be 10%. Then I think in another 2 years, it will go to about 12.5
yes.
or something.
Yes.
Then by 2030, it will go to 15. Now, this is also being sensitive to the current conditions. Inflation, cost of living, challenges of businesses, and the poverty situation. So that, for me, I think that is why the governors have suggested that for now, let us peg the VAT rate. And I believe that we can achieve a lot, with improving the administration of taxes, improving the leveraging of technology so that we stop leakages and all of that. So I think it makes sense.
And increase the tax net.
Exactly. That is critical.
Be our first focus at this time.
In fact, that's a major objective of this reform. Because we have a whole lot of people and entities that are outside the tax net. So I think the idea of not increasing the VAT rate is a very good idea.
But they also said that they are advocating for continued exemption of essential goods and agricultural produce from VAT. And, sometimes, for instance, the import suspension that the government announced is supposed to run from July to December, we don't even know if that even took off. And I've tried speaking to some agencies that are supposed to be in the value chain of implementation. It doesn't seem like there was anything done, but advocating for this, I wonder how realistic it is.
Something was done, but again, it comes with the problem of bureaucracy. These policies were announced I think, in July or June.
It was in June. It was supposed to start in July.
Yes. Now it's supposed to impact on the food imports. It's supposed to also impact on the pharmaceutical sector. The implementation did not start until sometimes around December or November.
When it was supposed to end.
When it's supposed to end. Exactly. And it has practically ended. A few companies benefited, but the objectives were not achieved. So that is why it's also important to worry about the apparatus of policy implementation. You can have a good policy and not have any good outcomes. Because if the implementation machinery has issues, then there'll be no concrete outcomes from those reforms. So it is very important to address that, But already we have some exemptions in tax, in VAT. For essential goods, and what the governors are saying is that those should continue.
Should be sustained.
Yes.
And then now the battle moves to the tertiary institutions, even though the governors are supporting them. But we saw there, because we don't know, it's still in the National Assembly, we don't know if the lawmakers will accept all the proposals from the governors. Then that will help us deal with the problem of Tetfund and Naseni and all of that.
The problem of Tetfund and Naseni, particularly Tetfund, first is the terminal clause, that the sunset provision in the law, that by 2030 or so it will be phased out completely. Now the governors are against that, and I agree with them, because of the impact of Tetfund on infrastructure. Because if you say that they should go through the budgetary process, I can assure you they will not get that kind of results in terms of infrastructure development, in the university. So it's a good thing. But the word of ASU now is that the percentage in terms of what will come to Tetfund will reduce. And that is what ASU is against now. So partially the battle has been at least supported by the governors. But the issue of the percentage reduction is something that we need to look into. And I think ASU is making a very, very valid case that in order not to, pull down or retrogress development in our tertiary education system, we have to allow the Tetfund to be. And as much as possible, we should not get to a situation where we completely commercialize university education or make it, completely withdraw the subsidy from university education. Because many of us that went to the university were able to go to university because of the subsidy. Even some of the policymakers. So it's something that we need to look at very, very critically so that we don't have a situation that leaves a lot of people behind. Even the current level of school fees, some parents cannot afford it. You need to go to the universities, talk to university administrators. They are still struggling to even afford to pay the current, just marginal review that was done. So if you now get
not to mention when even the little assistance is being removed.
Being removed. Because the student loan fund cannot substitute fully for the current subsidy in education, particularly in tertiary education.
So now our eyes move to the lawmakers, the National Assembly. We'll see how much of this they will adopt and how much they will change from the proposals of the governor. But I think the thought is by first quarter we should have seen all this legal
Yes. The governors are very influential. They have a lot of influence
even on the lawmakers.
Yes, on the lawmakers. So I'm very confident and optimistic that their proposals will stay true. But other issues around, this Tetfund and some other things about, this over-centralization and things, there are other conversations. And even those in the oil and gas sector, they also have their own issues. Those in the free trade zones, they also have their own issues.
I think Mr. Oyedele has just known just a little bit of what it means to be in politics in this country.
Exactly.
He's had a taste. One of these days, I hope we'll be able to get him. I know Sheon was trying to get him yesterday, but after the meeting of yesterday, I don't think they want to talk to anybody for a while. But one of these days, we hope to be able to talk to him.
There's a lot of lessons around the political environment, not just technical issues.
Exactly.
There's a lot of lessons.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Muda Yusuf, for helping us understand some of these changes and what to expect.
Thank you very much. Thank you.